As usual, in 2023, Airshow Stuff was recording all the action at AirVenture in Oshkosh. This year's AirVenture welcomed 677,000 visitors and over 10,000 aircraft. In this programme, we'll look back at the most interesting movements and the highlights of the flying displays. Among the attention-grabbing moments of this year's show, an unprecedented gathering of MiG vintage jets, 3 MiG-17s, the Polaris programme's MiG-29, and one of the few public appearances of Dan Filer's MiG-23. Newly restored Warbirds in the show included P-51C Mustang Thunderbird and P-47D Thunderbolt Bonnie, both displayed in style by Bernie Vasquez, and a C-121A Constellation Bataan. From the military, as well as the usual demonstration teams, we enjoyed static appearances by aircraft in some interesting special paint schemes and unique one-off roll demonstrations by NORAD and the Wisconsin Air National Guard. And could this be the future of air mobility? The Wisk eVTOL and Gravity Industries Jetpack both made their Oshkosh flying display debut this year. Finally, we'll look back at AirVenture's stunning night shows at the end of the programme. This programme was recorded by Airshow Stuff and compiled by This Is Flight. If you want to see more of the individual aircraft and performances without added narration, you can find dozens of videos on the Airshow Stuff YouTube channel. And for more airshow documentary films in this style, visit This Is Flight, where you'll find more than 30 episodes of airshow dispatches, each featuring a different event, recorded right around the world. But first, sit back and enjoy the highlights of AirVenture 2023. We start, as usual, with the mass Warbird arrivals, here predominantly featuring T-34 Mentors and T-28 Trojans. Wildfire smoke hampered the flying displays on Monday and Tuesday, meaning this spectacle was perhaps a little muted compared to normal, but it makes for an impressive sight nonetheless. Other Warbird types attending AirVenture included the Avenger, this Ryan ST-3 trainer, and B-17G Flying Fortress Yankee Lady. Also attending this 1/3 scale flyable B-17 replica known as the Bally Bomber. On the subject of bombers, B-29 Superfortress Doc was present at the show and performed some flypasts as it left for home on Sunday. One of the Warbird highlights of AirVenture 2023 was the public debut of C-121A Constellation Bataan from Lewis Air Legend. Bataan was restored to flight in June 2023 and arrived into Oshkosh to take pride of place in the static display. It's one of just 2 constellations currently airworthy, The other is operated by Haas in Australia, and this marked the first time that a Constellation had appeared at AirVenture in almost 2 decades. More newly restored aircraft in the flying display now. Here's Bernie Vasquez in P-51C Mustang Thunderbird. Based with the Dakota Territory Air Museum, this Mustang was modified post-war into an air racer. In 1949, it won the Bendix Trophy, one of the most sought-after air racing achievements in the United States, and in the process, it set a new piston airspeed record of 470 miles per hour. Like the Constellation, this aircraft was restored to flight in June, just a few weeks before appearing at AirVenture. Later in the week, Vasquez displayed another newly restored Warbird housed with the Dakota Territory Air Museum, P-47D Thunderbolt Bonnie, which first flew in May 2023. It's the only Republic-built Razorback P-47 currently in an airworthy condition, and one of a very small number of flying Razorback Thunderbolts of any kind. Moving forwards to the Korean War, AirVenture brought 6 airworthy F-4U Corsairs together for the flying display, promoting Devotion, a film based on the story of 2 fighter pilots from VF-32. They were joined by a Super Hornet from the modern-day VF-A-32. Only 3 of the Corsair pilots had formation cards, so the rest of the aircraft performed solo passes. One of the themes of AirVenture 2023 was the Vietnam War, and many aircraft types from that conflict were represented. Some, like the Skyraider and Skymaster, are fairly frequent sights at Oshkosh, others less so, like this C-1 Trader.
Got that 2 minutes inbound.
This is a carrier onboard delivery version of the S-2 Tracker anti-submarine warfare aircraft, and it was used to resupply aircraft carriers with mail and equipment during the Vietnam War. Rarer still, C-123K provider Thunderpig paid AirVenture a visit. It's the only airworthy C-123 in the world. A very different kind of aircraft used in the conflict. Here are two T-28 Trojans from the Trojan Flyers. T-28s ended up fighting on both sides of the conflict because, following a defection in 1963, a lone T-28 became North Vietnam's first combat aircraft. In fact, that T-28 was able to shoot down a C-123 in 1964. Also in 1964, North Vietnam received its first jet-powered fighter, the MiG-17. This example is flown by Randy Ball and is part of his fighter jets fleet. No fewer than 3 MiG-17s participated in the Warbirds of America showcase this year. The MiG-17 was primarily designed as a fast, lightweight interceptor that could pick off large bombers and then quickly scoot out of danger. However, in Vietnam it also proved to be a highly capable fighter that was more than a match for most of the more modern American aircraft like the F-4, thanks to its superior agility. The MiG-17s didn't necessarily achieve many shoot-downs, but they proved highly capable of ambushing American formations and forcing them to abandon their missions before they could reach their targets. These were far from the only MiGs at the show. Dan Filer's MiG-23UB caused quite a stir, not appearing in the official flying display, but nonetheless making several flights over the course of the week. First taking to the air in 1967, the MiG-23 was a major step forward in Soviet aircraft design. Their first jet fitted with look-down, shoot-down radar, one of the first with a beyond visual range missile capability, and it had an impressive top speed of Mach 2.4. This was the MiG-23's second and penultimate airshow appearance. It crashed at Thunder over Michigan a few weeks later. Sadly, the jet's participation at Oshkosh was cut short when its canopy jettisoned mid-flight, as you can see during this pass. The newest Soviet-era jet in the flying display was Jared Isaacman's MiG-29UB. The MiG-29 acted as the lead aircraft for the Polaris Dawn's relatively new Ghost Squadron display team, which also includes 2 Alpha Jet A's and 3 L-39C Albatrosses. All 3 of these aircraft types, and indeed the MiG-23 we saw a moment ago, remain in active military service around the world with numerous different air forces. Further jet warbirds appeared as fly-in visitors, such as this T-2 Buckeye, and this Hispano HA-200 Saeta.
One of those Hispano jets.
Yet more flew in the Warbirds of America showcase as part of Thursday's jet-themed performance. Numerous L-39s, along with some less common types like the S-211 and the T-33, all took to the air. Different Warbirds of America segments focused on training and liaison aircraft, like these Yak-52s and their Chinese look-alike, the Nanchang CJ-6. These odd-looking aircraft are Schweitzer SGM-237 motor gliders, used by the US Air Force Academy from the 1980s until 2003, where they were designated the TG-7A. Only 12 aircraft of this type were ever built. Here, a BT-13B Valiant leads a pair of Ryan Navions. The most modern trainer in the group was an ex-Royal Air Force Tucano T-1. And here, a trio of bird dogs. Transport aircraft were represented by C-45F Expediter bucket of bolts, an unmarked Beech D-18S, D-Day veteran C-47A Skytrain Placid Lassie, and the Verus Jet Sales C-47B Dakota.
Charlie, your traffic's making a little fast runway 369, got it right. Charlie, open stern.
Three B-25J Mitchells took part: Panchito, Miss Mitchell, and Devil Dog. And finally, Second World War fighters are always a major feature, particularly the P-51 Mustang, here performing a formation pass with a Bearcat.
Here we go. Man will go out and hold, get the other folks in for a one pass, and that's the best we can do, folks.
Separate from the Warbirds, a number of vintage civilian aircraft took part. This is the Calais Model A. Also present, a GN1 air camper, a very brightly coloured Beech 18, Cygnet SF-2A, de Havilland Thruxton Jackaroo, and two examples of the Taylor Cub, the forefather of the Piper J3. Some more modern but equally unusual general aviation visitors here: the Hummel H5, Sonia Englert Caro 1, Titan Tornado, Dyke Delta, and this very unusual aeroplane, a Lewis Ascender, a one-of-a-kind four-seat bush plane based loosely on a Piper Cub. Commercial aircraft, old and new, were present, although perhaps not in the same numbers as at some other editions of AirVenture. Two Ford Trimotors performed pleasure flights throughout the week, and they were joined by visiting aircraft such as the L-18 Lodestar and the Howard 500. Rather more modern, FedEx sent an example of the brand new Cessna 408 Sky Courier, a feeder airliner and light cargo aircraft which made its first flight in 2020. American Airlines dispatched a special scheme Airbus A321neo for the honour flight, taking veterans to Washington DC for the day to see the memorials. And Delta sent one of the largest aircraft in its fleet, an Airbus A350-941. Boeing might not have been represented with one of their commercial products this year, but they did send their extraordinary Dreamlifter, an outsized transport aircraft based on the 747-400. The Dreamlifter, which appeared at AirVenture on static display, is mainly used to transport parts for the Boeing 787 between Italy, Japan and the United States. Only 4 of them have ever been produced. A far older outsized transport aircraft was also present in the static display, the Aero Spaceline Super Guppy, developed from the Boeing 377. First flying in 1965, 5 Super Guppies have been built. They were used in the early days of Airbus production, but this example comes from NASA, who have used the Super Guppy to transport equipment and vehicles during the space race. More recently, it's been used to move large spacecraft components like Orion crew capsules. Numerous civilian aircraft took part in the flying display, not least the usual succession of solo aerobatic performers. But a rather more unusual flying display participant was this Pilatus PC-6 from the Jungle Aviation and Radio Service. This is an aviation missionary organisation that works in remote areas such as Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, Brazil and Cameroon. With its ability to land on rough, unprepared airstrips just 200 metres in length, the PC-6 is highly suited to this task. AirVenture strives to showcase some of the latest innovations in aviation, and this year's show included the global flying display debut of the Cora eVTOL, built by Wisk, a subsidiary of Boeing. The Cora is a prototype 2-seat eVTOL with a range of 62 miles and a cruise speed of just under 100 knots. Wisk hopes that this is a stepping stone to certifying a 4-seat autonomous commercial air taxi known as the Wisk Generation 6. This might not count as an aircraft at all. It's Gravity Industries' jetpack designed by Richard Browning. The jetpack consists of 5 small jet turbines, producing a total of more than 1,000 horsepower, with a flight time of 10 minutes and a record speed of 74 knots. For the time being, it's a bit of a novelty, but it will soon be used by paramedics in the UK's Lake District National Park for mountain rescue missions. It's also being trialled by the Royal Marines, and Gravity Industries is working to develop a jetpack racing series as well. 4 of the 5 armed forces that make up the US military presented aircraft at AirVenture 2023. The Coast Guard contributed an MH-60T Jayhawk, the Army a Chinook and Apache, and the Navy sent a P-3C Orion for the static, as well as numerous flying display assets, which we'll look at later in the programme. The Air Force made the largest contribution, and this year's featured branch was the Air Education and Training Command. Therefore, plenty of trainers, many wearing heritage paint schemes, appeared at the show, including examples of the T6 Texan II, T38 Talon and T1 Jayhawk. Larger static participants included a C-130J-30 Hercules, CV-22B Osprey and a C-5M Galaxy from Travis Air Force Base. Here, an excellent look at the C-5's bizarre undercarriage, which has to rotate through 90 degrees before it retracts into the fuselage. Jet noise came courtesy of an F-15C and D Eagle from the 114th Fighter Wing of the Oregon Air National Guard. The Wisconsin Air National Guard staged an Oshkosh debut, contributing one of their new F-35A Lightning IIs to the static display for the first time. And this was a memorable military participant, an F-16C from the Duluth Air National Guard, wearing a special paint scheme that marks the 75th anniversary of the 148th Fighter Wing. Assets from Beale AFB were represented in both the flying and static display. This U-2S Dragon Lady performed several flypasts in what will probably be one of the type's last Oshkosh appearances. After 70 years of service, the venerable U-2 spyplane has now been slated to retire in 2026. Because pilots don't get much time at the controls of the U-2, Beale also operates a fleet of T-38s, which are used to keep pilots practiced in general airmanship. One of those participated in the static display. Even older than the U-2, with its first flight taking place in 1952, is the B-52 Stratofortress, an example of which participated in the flying display with a single pass. The 165th Wing of the Maryland Air National Guard provided AirVenture's traditional A-10C Thunderbolt II close air support demonstration. The A-10 is generally well liked among both air crews and soldiers on the ground, not least thanks to its excellent survivability. But after many years of debate, the Air Force has now finally settled on a plan to divest itself of the A-10, with retirement starting in 2023 and the last aircraft due to leave service by 2029. 2023 marked the 100th anniversary of the first successful air-to-air refueling, so it was appropriate to see two demonstrations of this in the flying display. One was provided by a KC-135R Stratotanker and a C-17A Globemaster III, both from the 97th Air Mobility Wing at Altus AFB. The KC-135 has been the backbone of US aerial refueling capability for many decades, but the type is now being replaced in two tranches. The first tranche is being succeeded by the KC-46A Pegasus, and the successor for the second tranche is yet to be decided, but it's most likely more KC-46s or the Airbus A330 multi-role tanker transport. The C-17, meanwhile, is a core part of the USAF's strategic airlift fleet, and is probably also the largest aircraft to offer true tactical airlift capabilities. Because of this, demand for the C-17 remains strong, even though production ended nearly 10 years ago, and recently Boeing has revealed that they are considering reopening C-17 production. A second demonstration of aerial refueling came as part of a broader airfield attack scenario presented by the Wisconsin Air National Guard. The display began with the arrival of an F-35A Lightning II conducting suppression of enemy air defences. Next, the insertion of troops from the 120th Field Artillery Regiment aboard 2 UH-60 Blackhawks from the 147th Aviation Regiment. Those ground troops were then able to start using their M101 105mm howitzers as further reinforcements arrived aboard 4 additional Blackhawks. As the action unfolded, 2 F-35s from the 115th Fighter Wing conducted multiple passes to simulate close air support. Next, 2 further Blackhawks arrived to extract a casualty. They conducted a live hoist of a simulated injured soldier, with the F-35s continuing to provide support. Now in need of fuel, the F-35s rendezvous with a KC-135 from the 128th Air Refueling Wing. Another one-off demonstration showcased the work of NORAD, the joint US-Canadian operation responsible for monitoring and policing North American airspace. In this case, an F-16C from the 148th Fighter Wing of the Duluth National Guard demonstrated how it would intercept a wayward general aviation aircraft, perhaps a reminder to the many aviators in the crowd to check the NOTAMs before flying.
Concentrated mostly on very heavy security TFRs, not all of the TFRs, correct?
That is correct. We are looking at the Washington, D.C. stiffer and the presidential TFRs are our main focus. So on this path,
The final display from the US Air Force came from the F-22A Raptor demonstration team, starting with a low transition and abrupt pull to the vertical. Because of the size and position of the aerobatic box at Oshkosh, the F-22 can't quite perform its full aerobatic display. But this year's pilot, Captain Sam Larson, has found a way to include several of the Raptor's trademark manoeuvres, like this very impressive J-turn, a high-alpha post-stall manoeuvre that combines a cobra and a pedal turn. Captain Larson is a keen photographer, and this photo flight on the Thursday marked his journey from airshow photographer to airshow demonstration pilot. The F-22 also performed a heritage flight with a Mustang and Skyraider. The US Navy provided 3 fastjet displays at AirVenture, and that included their own 5th generation fighter, the F-35C Lightning II. As a CTOL carrier-capable version of the F-35, the F-35C has a larger wing for better low-speed handling, with a hinged outer section to reduce the amount of space it takes up on the carrier deck. This means the aircraft is limited to 7.5G rather than the usual 9G, but thanks to the larger wing area, it still exhibits comparable turning performance to the 9G capable variants of the F-35. Not to be outdone, the FA-122's Rhino demonstration team, flying an FA-18F Super Hornet, also took to the air. As well as its solo routine, the Super Hornet performed a legacy flight with 2 Corsairs. And here, 2 aircraft that look like Super Hornets, but which are actually EA-18G Growlers. The Growlers fly alongside regular Super Hornets on operations, providing jamming support, threat detection, and helping to maintain voice communication between aircraft in the face of enemy jamming attempts. This display was recorded during AirVenture's twice-weekly night show, which included a lot of jet noise this year. Like the Super Hornet, the Growlers also performed a legacy flight with 2 Corsairs. The F-22 returned amid stunning photographic conditions for another demonstration. And the MiGs got a second showing as well, with the Polaris Dawn MiG-29 and Randy Ball's MiG-17 performing formation and solo flypasts.
I got it.
The honour of closing the night show went to Nathan Hammond with his Super Chipmunk. As one of the great innovators of the North American airshow scene, he's worked on combining his act with ground-launched fireworks, a fitting finale to our look back at AirVenture 2023. As we come towards the end of the programme, remember that you can see uncut, unnarrated videos of many of the performances and aircraft featured here if you visit the Oshkosh playlist on the Airshow Stuff YouTube channel. And to see many more airshow films in this style, do check out This Is Flight. We'll see you again from AirVenture 2024.